Hello there, you're watching Society Today's show on Hard Guides Media, and I am your host, Rosemont Field Sihiwa, and we have in the studio none other but Lawrence Kerr, who will be giving us his perspective on the topic systemic racism in Canada. I'm pretty sure that you're going to have an amazing time garnering from the insights that Lawrence would have to offer. So please do pay attention. And of course, you can always drop your comments, your questions, and we'll do our best to actually respond on this show. Hello, Mr. Lawrence. How are you today?
I'm well, and yourself?
Oh yeah, doing very, very great. Coming from the background of a lot of things that have been going on across the world, heated conversations, basically talking about this issue of racism and all that. I'm really, really glad that you are actually coming out to actually lend a voice, to the plethora of voices that have been speaking. And it's something that I really, really I appreciate. Thank you so much for being here, and it's really, really good to have you. Without any further ado, before we go into the heated issues that we know we have to talk about on the show, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I always love to know my guest and a little bit of the story. So if you could just tell us about yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Well, it all started when I was 5, and no, I'm just joking. I'm not going that far back. I'm a photographer.
I was about to listen.
We don't have that much time for that story, but I'm a photographer, but I also specialize in branding. So I help clients cultivate their brand, document their stories, and connect with their target audience. So it's just an amazing time to be doing that and helping clients to document what they've been going through this quarantine and COVID time. So, just really interesting is probably the best way to put it.
That's really, really great. Thank you so much for that. That was quite short anyways, but yeah, it was cool. It's short. Cool. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what? It's short and sweet, and it's what it is. Photography with an emphasis on branding. So and that's one of the things I help clients get to is what's the point? What's the story? It doesn't have to be drawn out,
exactly.
But something that they can understand quickly.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. So straight to the meat of the issue. So what exactly is your opinion about this current situation, particularly this issue of racism that has become more or less like a global topic across different countries? Yeah.
Well, it's again, I'll use the word interesting in that it's for a lot of us, it's what we've been seeing for years. It's what we've known to be the case, but now it's being highlighted, it's being filmed, and it's being shown. So it's out there now, and it's irrefutable. The amount of evidence, the amount of instances that we're seeing is really being put to the fore that this is happening and something needs to be done about it. So I think now is the greatest opportunity we've had to see some change and enact change in making the situation better for Black people across the world.
Yeah, that's amazing, honestly, because it's now that we are getting voices. Now, the truth is that it has always been with us. But there's sometimes you actually think that we have this behind us. Nobody's looking that these are issues. But all of a sudden it pops up and everybody's like, why are we still circling the same mountain that we've been circling for years? You've had a lot of human rights movements coming out shouting about it. Everybody's writing about it. People are preaching about it. And then right now you have these issues come up and like, where's the progress? And I think that's the deep-seated hunger or anger as well that we actually have, that some of these issues have actually not actually died. They've just been buried, and it's good that now it's a time for us to actually arise. And I really, really thank you for that comment. George Floyd's death stirred up the conversation of racism. Why do you think his death played a big role for this conversation to start once again worldwide?
Well, it's really interesting because the Ahmaud Arbery was maybe a week, 2 weeks before George Floyd. And we didn't have the resolution there as to what was happening. So there was, that was really at the forefront. And for me personally, that really affected me because even though I'm in Canada, hundreds, thousands of miles away from where it happened, my youngest daughter lives in Atlanta, and it's not even 5 hours away from where she lives. So right then that struck a chord for me and hyper aware of what was going on. And I think because we didn't have resolution with Ahmaud Arbery and what was going to happen to those individuals that shot him, filmed his death and everything else, now we had George Floyd, tensions were already up. So we were already very sensitive and aware and upset and hurt and angry. And then that happened in the way that it was, and now at the hands of law enforcement. It was enough, and I think a lot of people really took that to say, all right, this is the time that we need to act. And it's not just a Black issue. This is a global issue. This is a human rights issue.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. And, talking about the word systemic, and you mentioned that, ordinarily, yes, okay, a fellow person could say, oh, use the N-word or do something that, would actually spark aggravation. But when it is in the hands of the same people who we've committed our trust to actually safeguard the law, who are the ones breaking the law, then it becomes utterly ridiculous. So, it's one of the things that basically must have struck a chord, and I'm really glad you actually pointed that out. But I have a thought. Do you actually think that it's going to get better? Before now, people were uncomfortable talking about racism. Nobody wanted to talk about it. We were experiencing it. We were seeing it. We were getting the vibes, but we really didn't want to talk about it. Now, everybody has something to say. Some are listening and learning. Some are sharing their experiences. Do you think this is actually a good start, or it's actually something that would cure racism in the end? Because racism has become beyond just a concept. It's actually a pandemic. So do you actually think talking about it now and raising your voices and saying your story will actually do something, or to change it, or maybe reduce the effect, or delete it totally from us?
Absolutely. There's several trains of thought and schools of thought on how we need to deal with the situation and to eradicate racism. And I think it's very important that one of those steps is talking about it, is giving it its name and naming it and putting it out there and pointing it out when it exists. Because what we're seeing now, especially for the non-Black individuals and allies, even and I say allies because some people, they're like, no, I have Black friends. My daughter's married to, my granddaughter is half Black, so how could I be racist? But they don't understand the systemic side of it, and the anti-Black racism that exists, and so many ways that it shows up. So now we're being more aware, and we're putting our energy and voice behind having these conversations. And now, just earlier today, I had a conversation with my neighbor at the studio, and we were talking, he's a white gentleman, and he felt he had to say something, but he didn't know what to say. So that's the first part, and realizing, being uncomfortable with what's going on and feeling that his voice needs to be heard, but he feels that he can't solve this problem. This isn't a white problem to solve. And that's where, had to kind of turn the conversation a little bit to say, well, you know what, we can do, Black people can do all the things that we can to get things done, but we're going to need everyone to come together to make this happen, because we could go to war and fight and riot and do all those things for years and years and years. Do we have the resources to do that? Do we have the, time, energy, money, and just that energy to do that? No. So there is going to come that time where if we move beyond talking, we move beyond riots, which Dr. George Fraser, I was on a call with him last week, and he pointed out the steps that need to happen, but rioting, protesting, talking, they're all part of it, but it's not it. It's a part of the system of things that need to happen. And then that will help to bring the things to light, because if there weren't the riots and the protests, the conversation wouldn't have reached the level that it did. So it serves a purpose to get that. Now, is that something that's sustainable? No. But now that we have your attention, let's talk. And once we talk, so yes, I think that, it's something that can be fixed, but I'm of the frame of mind that it's going to take time. And it's kind of thing that, not to say, you do need to be patient, but not sit and wait.
Yeah.
So, I love talking about the law of attraction. So we put it out there, we wish, we hope, we want, and we talk about the things that we want, put it out in the universe, but then there's a law of action. And there's the things that we need to do to then now put steps to make these things happen. So there's a whole host of things that have been put forward in the last couple of weeks about what that action looks like. And, again, talking about it is definitely a part of that. So I am encouraged. If you'd asked me a week and a half ago, I don't think the change is going to happen in my lifetime. It might happen in my son's, he's 26, but it might be his kids. But we have to, like, the system wasn't put in place overnight. It's something that we're going to have to work on and be resolute to say, you know what, we want change. We want to see some change, but to get to that point where we're not just fighting for human rights, we're not fighting for civil rights, for equality. So the civil rights movement was just for civil rights, and then you have the human rights movement where, the LGBTQ community is asking for equal rights. Why aren't we asking for equal rights? We just don't want to be able to be in the room. We want to have a seat at the table. And that's where we need to, work towards developing.
And that's fantastic, because now you talked about beyond just talking about it, tweeting about it, making comments. You actually have to take action. Your voice must be heard. You take action. Don't just sit on the sidelines and say, okay, they're doing a good job, because you think it's not affecting you. It may not affect you, but it will affect your children and the children after them. So you actually have to take responsibility, see the big picture, and understand that it's not a fight that is a personal one. It's actually something that should be a general or global effort, from all sides. And that's really, really fantastic. But let's narrow it down a bit. Now let's talk about Canada. Is there racism in Canada? And
yes.
Of course, we heard that Doug Ford said there is no systemic racism. What are your views on that? So my question is both ways. So the first question, is there racism in Canada? And of course, what are your views on the fact that Doug Ford stated that there is no systemic racism?
Absolutely there is. And it, living here my entire life, well, I did live in Atlanta for a period of time. So I did experience some of the Southern charm there. But yes, racism does exist. I've experienced it, numerous times as a child, growing up through, and it's interesting, a lot of times when people talk about racism in Canada, and in particular, it's at the hands of the police. It's about traffic stops. It's about things that have happened. So we've all, we all have, a lot of us have experienced that. And it's interesting. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they've never been stopped by the police. Now, this was a woman, so I don't know many Black males that haven't, but outside of the police, in the workplace, I've experienced it there, and being in a position of, okay, if I say anything, am I going to be fired? Do I just have to take this because I'm not in a position of power? So there's is there going to be a consequence for their action? Will there be a consequence for mine? So, and I think that's part of the challenge that we have there. We're not seen as much of value, and there isn't as much consequence for these actions. There might be a slap in the wrist, if HR gets involved, if it's in the workplace, if something happens at school. So there's a lot of places and ways it shows up. And, you look at schools and what's in the curriculum and what they're being taught. So whole sections of our history, when we're being taught Canadian history, doesn't involve or include what happened with the Black and Indigenous people and the plight that they face, and all the other minorities that have had a hand in developing Canada. So it's there. It's not as overt. I won't say there's as much fear as there would be in some areas and pockets of the States, but yeah, absolutely. And, regarding Doug Ford's comments, it's a challenge because it just goes to show because you don't see it. It might not be in your doorstep in particular, so you don't think it is. It's not as bad as it is in the States. That's a fair statement, but that doesn't mean it's not here. So to not
there,
see that and understand that, that's a challenge. So that's based on his circle. That's based on his experience, and not speaking for him in that way. But I know personally things that he's done for the Black community and the community in general. So, does doing one thing, make you not racist? Does doing something and seeing things in your context and things that he may be involved with in a grander scheme, no, he doesn't see that happening in that way, possibly. But I think there's an opportunity for the people in his cabinet. When you look at the makeup of his cabinet, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And the people around him to get better educated. And I think that's for everyone, for every non-Black person, every non-minority, and even obviously the other minorities, to see it now and again, and put a name on it, so they see that it's not just about being anti-Black or anything else, but it's systemic, and in the way that it's in institutions, in ways that it shows up in banks, and equal to individuals, Black and white, same profile, same income, and one can get a loan, the other one can't. Right. So, and that's the side that they don't see. So it's not about, the lynchings and the, overt killings and everything else and quote unquote hate crimes, but how those things on a daily basis affect us.
Honestly, and coming from a history of that kind of treatment, it has a way, it can begin to be viewed as just, we are used to it. But the truth is that a time will come where we will no longer be used to it. And that is why we have, things happening now that everybody is beginning to lend their voice, sharing their experiences. And I completely agree with what you actually said. Racism is a deep issue. I was speaking to a guest earlier and said it's beyond just the hashtag Black Lives Matter. It's actually deeper than that. It comes from a very, very deep place, with historical antecedents, with prejudice, with a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of transferred anger, if that's the case, and it's not just a Black or a white issue. It's a human issue. It's actually humanity that you're calling out to us. So it's something that really, really should be sorted out. And I think it's very, very important that it's being raised right now. And we can only hope that it gets better, Thank you very much for that answer. What would you actually say to people who are really on the sidelines? Okay, I don't have any problem with it. They're just neutral about it. What are your comments to such kind of posture or mindset, as it were?
Well, yeah, it's funny. And I think part of the reason why I'm on the call is I'm not very vocal about a lot of things, but I felt moved to speak about this. And I made a post saying silence equals consent. And if we're not talking about it, if we're not doing something, and I think I need to clarify that, because after a conversation I had earlier, it's not necessarily silence in the way of not speaking up, because there's many ways that you could speak up. There's many ways that you cannot be silent, to have your voice being heard. So it might be through the written word, it might be through speaking, it might be through actions if you're an artist, or if you're someone that in a position of power that can enact and do certain things. So it's not just about going out and declaring that, hey, I'm not, I'm not racist, I'm not this is appalling, which is very important. But I think there's many ways that we can not be silent. And I think that is really important for our allies to see. But then there's even people that are, Black people that are in positions of power, that are in the media, so to speak, and they haven't spoken up. And, you look at that and you're wondering, okay, where is your voice? What's your take on that? And, you look at the social media and there aren't any posts, but you can't view that and what their actions or belief is based on what they post, because some people don't post everything. So they might be behind the scenes. There might be the ones in the mask in the front line at the protest, right? So it's but now there's that feeling that I have to say something. I need to say something. If I don't, there'll be consequences. I will be seen as supporting if I don't. And so you're seeing a lot of people coming out, and some of them are pretty pablum statements that are being made. But like, my colleague today, they sat around and figured out how to craft a message to put out. They don't want to put out a message like everyone else is. So they're being thoughtful about saying something, knowing that the demographic of people that they serve and that are around them, they want to say something, but they're searching for the right words, because, you know, not like say Doug Ford or someone who misspeaks, that or may have trying to say something from the heart, or you know, and the words be misconstrued. This isn't an opportunity or a time for that. So it's take that time, think about how you feel, internalize that, write it out, review it, revise it, reread it, and then make a statement. But should you say something? I think so. That would be good for everyone to declare and let it be known how you feel, because when you see the masses, when you see a number of people and the allies and everyone coming forward to saying this isn't right, that would be the first step to saying, all right, let's make a change.
Let's make a change. Amazing. You know, media groups, traditional media, social media, you know, they have a way of mounting pressure. You know, rather than just going on media and just saying whatever catches your fancy, or trying to instigate a lot of hatred on Twitter handles and posts, you can actually make a difference by actually what you say. You know, and as these movements come up, you know, as people begin to speak about these things, you are actually putting pressure on the government, on the institutions that have to actually do something about it. Because, you know, if you start in one day, Rome wasn't built in a day. We are not saying that it's going to eradicate or just going to leave tomorrow. But let it be that at this sort of time, you know, at this point in our history, something was actually said. And I think that's really, really incredible. And it's something that, you know, affects us all, you know. One thing I also wanted to also find out from you, personally, I have an issue with even the delineation or the appellation blacks, whites, or, you know, it just makes everything really complicated, really. But unfortunately, that's where we found ourselves. I was asking a friend one day, and I said, why does it have to be, why are we called blacks in the first place? Okay, why can't we be called we are of African descent or something? Why is the narration? I know it's a bit dramatic and I'm being extra or something, but it just tells you that if you're not for us, you are not for us. So beyond just, you know, trying to say something about it, I think if there has to be a mind shift. There has to be a mind shift. And the only places where you can actually get those mind shifts are actually institutions. Institutions are responsible, from the schools, from the nursery schools to the high schools to the middle schools. Even before you begin to go into politics, even if you go into other arenas, things have to be told that we are both one. When we are born as one. So, you know, giving these differences doesn't really, really help at the end of the day. And so I'm so thankful that you have actually noted this. And like you said, do something. You may not be overt about it, but let it be that your stance is known, that you stand against racism and, you know, whatever it stands for. So thank you very much for that. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No,
but I'm
but
really,
to
really
your point about
this,
you know,
really.
black and white and those labels, I've always, I should say always, as I got older and really thought about it, that label of black, and it's even more interesting being Canadian, because in the States, they have adopted some Afro-American, and Afro-Canadian hasn't really stuck. It doesn't roll off the tongue as freely for a lot of people. So we all revert to our Caribbean background, if that's it, or if there's a country in Africa where we come from that we'll identify with. But to say we are one and accept that and want it. So that label, you know, when we think black, my skin isn't black. It's melanated, it's brown. So to have that label of black, and then everything, not everything, but a lot of things that are negative are black, you know. So, you know, black cats are bad luck. You know, you have, you know, if the fruit is bad, it's black. If there's, you know, something bruised, it's black and blue and everything else, and the pure is white and the good is white and everything else. So even in that label for who we are is inherently negative. And so when we say that, and you know how hard it is, black, it's black. And when you say that, so it's where did that come from? Why, you know, so now delving into the history of that and how that came to be, you know, do we review that? But there's so many things, and this is the challenge why I think that it's going to take time, because personally, I think, you know, it's a mindset shift that we all need to come to, and then have this common goal of what it is we want. Clearly, that, you know, here's that overarching one thing, and that there's several sub particles to that, then this is what we're working towards. And then when we have that, then we
course.
can put an action plan together uniformly to go towards. But along that way, I hope that shedding that title, that label of Black is taken away, because it's not one that describes us uniformly. Your complexion to my complexion to my granddaughter's complexion. She's Black, but she's very light. But she's Black. But they look at it and try to explain to them, okay, you're Black, but this is the color Black, but it's also what you're called as a people. So I think shedding a lot of those things that were placed upon us will be important. So there's so many things that need to happen for us to get to that point of equality and justice. However, there's steps, there's things that are identifiable and we can work towards. Once enough of us feel that this is what we need, then we can work towards it.
Exactly. I completely agree. Thank you for agreeing with me, because people always felt I was extra in saying that, like, why do you have to know because they are called white? So it's not we are humans first.
Right.
We're humanity first. It's humanity first. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Second best time is now. So why don't we get started? So we'll have the roundup, but just for your last words, do you have any other thing to say in relation to this topic? Maybe you haven't asked the question, or something that really to you. Would you like to just share it with us for the group?
There's been a lot of discussion about what needs to happen, and I think if we take some time to think about what it is you want individually, and then find the people the same mindset, and then we can develop and build from there. So I think one mind will get things accomplished. Having a goal and then working towards it. So it's just like any business plan. It's just like anything you've done to achieve. You can do it by accident and hope to do it again, or you can do it on purpose and then be able to repeat it. So I'd like to see us purposefully make some moves to come together. And yes, we need our allies. This isn't something we're going to get done by ourselves. So we need to invite other people into the conversation, make it difficult if need be, but welcome them to the conversation and support that and nurture that opportunity for them to participate, and not make it like this is something we're going to do by ourselves. Because you know what, if we have that mindset, there has to be consequences, and we have to put ourselves in position of value. So by that, not that we're of service, but we are in positions of power. And that's what's going to make the difference. So it's a legacy thing. So it starts with our kids and our kids' kids, but really emphasizing what needs to happen. It's not just about getting a job. It's about owning. It's not just about owning. It's about coming together and as a group and multiplying that way. So
that's right. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to have your thoughts on this, and it's been an enriching and enlightening discussion with you, Lawrence. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. So let your viewers know how they can connect with you. Social media, is there any way we could connect with you?
Absolutely. The best way, Lawrence Kerr Media. So that is my Instagram. You'll find me on Twitter there. That's my website, lawrencekerrmedia.com. And my number is widely available if anyone wants to reach out and call or send an email.
Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, I see. All right. Okay, Lawrence Kerr Media. All right. Thank you so much. So we have to draw the curtain here, and I will just say that thank you so much for actually taking the time to be here, and I had so much fun. Being here. Thank you so much, and I wish you an amazing day. Regards to your grandchild and of course your daughter and your family.
Thank you.
Take care.